So in the last couple of videos, we've been talking about gods, gurus, and spiritual teachings and how they are not necessarily beneficial to one's spiritual progress. They have the potential of being beneficial, but only if they lend assistance and detachment and do not enable dependence on them. Now, some spiritual teachers recommend that we detach from the material but stay attached to God. So, in other words, form an attachment to our own fundamental essence of total pure awareness. Because the term God is a confusing ambiguity that lends to the idea of separateness, which compels one to think and believe, and just by doing this we end up right back at square one. So if one recognizes the oneness of total awareness and has discarded the superficial middleman concept of God, should one necessarily form an attachment to total awareness? Why? Because when you get right down to it, it's not even necessary. For what really is an attachment exactly? Attachments are any familiar association that reinforce an idea of a self, and a self by default reinforces the notion of separation, and separation by its core design estranges us from our pure essence. So forming an attachment to spirit defeats the purpose when the attachment itself supposes that there is a you to form this attachment and a spirit that comprises the other to attach to. How does one attach to that which one already is? A wave in an ocean appears as if it is some distinguished event, but really is it? An ocean is always an ocean. And tides, currents, ripples, waves, and bubbles never change that. Is it necessary for a wave in an ocean to form an attachment to the ocean? Of course not, for there is no separation in an ocean, and there really is no separation at all, anywhere or in anything, ever. This, of course, means that there is no self to become separated or form an attachment to begin with. There is only an illusion of such. Nothing matters, nothing exists, and there is no meaning to this dream we call life. Are you uncomfortable with that? Whether you are or not, again, presupposes that there is a you there to be comfortable or uncomfortable. There is no you because there are no others, and because there are no others, there is no self. But isn't an illusion of self substantial? It only appears as such when we do not look past the surface. If we dig just a little bit into it with introspection, it becomes evident that there is a source hidden underneath all the layers. If this source mistakenly identifies itself with the web of complexity, then this is an indication that the source has forgotten that it's the source of these projections. If the source has forgotten that it is the source, then just like that, all at once, illusion is in full effect. One way to describe illusion is to say that it is unawareness of the design behind appearances. And this means the fundamental design, not just of the science of appearances. We can dissect appearances all we like, but this will not lead back to source. We are but playing with a Chinese puzzle box, or zooming through a fractal. An infinity of layers upon layers upon layers upon layers of appearances underneath appearances underneath appearances underneath appearances. None of this will lead to the source behind the you that you identify as a you. So the question should be asked, is the you found in identifications or in what's making the identifications? Can we identify what's identifying the identifier? Can we recognize what's recognizing the recognizer? Can we experience what's experiencing the experiencer? If we do, then we will see that the essence of what we are lies beyond the body, mind, and material plane. It will not be found in reality, observation, experience, consciousness, or perception, but rather simply as that which is aware of all these things. To arrive at this awareness, there is nothing to dissect, extrapolate, alter, add, balance, unify, harmonize, or repair. There are only things to strip away. If one begins to strip away and discard all things little by little, till there is nothing left to strip away, not even the process of stripping away and discarding, then you will have surely arrived to the essence of your being, the source of all things. If we arrive to this eternal, ever-present, always so source, the essence of our being, the total pure awareness of one, non-separated, then could this source be rightly called a self? If one strips away everything down to the core, then there is no longer any position from which to call something anything. In the absence of distinction, there is no more distinction. When one has let go of labels, then there is nothing left to label, nor the one to label it. This is why words are insufficient and inadequate to describe it. We can only do the best that we can and come as close as we can, but even still this falls short. For how does one describe the undescribable, label that which is beyond labels, and understand what can't be understood by the tool of understanding? We can only experience it. And if we experience it, then it can be seen that there is no self in the wholeness. A self can only be a self if there are others. And since there are no others in the oneness, then there can be no self. Selves, others, and everything else from our inventory is only applicable within illusion. The formless nothingness of the pure essence cannot be made familiar by anything within the illusory inventory. People have tried to do this, describing nothingness as black, dark, void, or empty space. But even these descriptions completely miss the mark. Nothingness does not resemble anything we can conceive of. It is that which is completely outside of all contextualization. And since it cannot be associated with anything and is outside of our configured scope of reference and narrative, it cannot rightly be talked about or explained with anything available to us. It is ineffable. It can be experienced but cannot be conveyed to another by any tool. So if this is the case, then the only way to gain access is through direct experience. And this leaves a lot of people wondering, because not many people experience it. So how does one experience it? As indicated earlier, it can be experienced by way of detachment and the stripping away of all that we are not, so that the only thing that left is all that we are. And the easiest and most basic way to do this is with meditation. This is all that meditation really is. It is not a trance, a tapping into the subconscious, deep contemplation, or a prayer to divine deities. It is the process of emptying, clearing out, and shutting down, of tapping into that which is beyond trance, subconscious contemplation, prayers, and deities. The normal operations of illusion leave no corridor to our pure essence. In fact, the illusion, by design, dismisses all existence of our pure essence. Illusion only deals with surface appearances, or at best, the appearances underneath appearances. This is why people believe the illusion is real and can be verified satisfactorily with science. But any answers gained through the scientific method only leave more questions and will never reach a conclusion. It is but endless ventures into the micro or macro that explain nothing, lead nowhere, and certainly never verify the authenticity. like a dog chasing its own tail endlessly in infinity. The only thing that could ever be said to be sure by anyone is that they are aware. Beyond this, everything else is speculation. Whether this awareness is artificial or natural is besides the point. The one sure thing is what we should be exploring. Exploring anything else will only serve to distrange us from that one sure thing. Total pure awareness. When we talk about having become disconnected from our pure essence and reconnecting with it, it would be inaccurate to assume that this means that we are somehow separate from it. At no time are we ever separated from our pure essence. It's more a matter of having insulated ourselves from it by putting up walls around us. Just as an apartment is not really separate from the building it is located in, and the building is not separated from the city, and the city is not separated from the state, and the state is not separated from the country, and the country is not separated from the world, and so on and so forth. Calling attention to this encapsulated illusion of separation is not about instilling guilt or shame in a unit of awareness. It's not about determining a judgment on a unit of awareness based on any scale of superiority or inferiority or more or less equal. It's not about coming to grips with any type of imperfection as contrasted against some state of total perfection, a destination that must be reached where our journey will be complete. All of these things are merely concepts that are only given validation through a specific frame of reference. Calling attention to the limited frame of reference is all about enabling expansion of awareness. This is how the dream shifts. This is how evolution unfolds. It's not about fixing any inherently flawed element of being, but rather broadening perspective to encompass wider awareness. With this, the context and elements of being transform all by themselves. But the elements and context of being are never the goal or destination, but only serve as the foundation for further expansion. Just as an example, a bird in the sky and a turtle on the ground are completely equal. The bird has a wider perspective than the turtle, but that doesn't make the bird superior in being. The great equalizer is death. If the turtle wanted to expand his perspective, the way is not found in seeking the physical transformation to bird. The way is found in broadening the perspective by any means available. That is all. Nothing more is required. The only thing that prevents the turtle from doing so is the attachment of being a turtle. The only thing that prevents the bird from doing so is the attachment to being a bird. Foundations can be used as a springboard only if we employ them as a springboard. If we cling and hold on as hard as we can to a springboard, to where can we spring? Even though with words these affairs of expansion are referred to as a quest or a path, it is not a matter of seeking or finding. You are already that which is capable of expansion. Everything that you could possibly require is already available to you. It is just a matter of employing it. And being able to employ it is not a matter of seeking either, but simply in becoming aware that you can employ it. Enlightenment is not about a final attainment, but more about a wider perspective of expanded awareness that will serve as the foundational context for further enlightenment. You will never reach a perspective that could be called the final, widest, most expanded perspective. Even a so-called transcended enlightened spiritual master who has become one with total pure awareness and sees duality from the outside has not reached anywhere. He has only gone as far as he possibly can within the context of his being. Even the widest possible perspective that we can conceive of is but a grain of sand on a beach. Even total pure awareness itself may be a component of something beyond the scope of knowing, experiencing, or imagining. But if we use our connection to total pure awareness to guide us, we can never go wrong. And how is this connection achieved? Total pure awareness lies beyond all thinking. In fact, it is the thinking that has seemingly put us once removed from it. It is the thinking that supports the conditioning that insulates us in illusion. This is why thinking is overrated. A lot of people like to use it to put themselves on a pedestal with ideas like, I think for myself, I am a free thinker. Those people are sheep because they conform to other people's thoughts. But this is just more arrogant delusion. All thinkers alike are equally insulated from their essence. Levels of intelligence and thoughts are about nothing other than knowing the ins and outs of an inventory. Intelligence can lend some insight into wider perspective, but the only problem is that it achieves this from the inside looking out, not from the outside looking in. So intelligence alone never transcended anyone. Intelligence, in fact, is an obstruction to transcendence. This is why some of the most brilliant men of conventional science cannot wrap their minds around quantum physics, because they are trying to do such from the inside out. Insight cannot be found somewhere out there. Insight is found by exploring within, and then, ironically, we will find ourselves on the outside looking in. It will take a new kind of scientist to approach quantum physics appropriately. So then comes the question of stagnation. If through attachments we seem to become locked in a contextualized frame of reference, what if we become stuck? Well, death will ensure that no one will ever be permanently stagnated or attached. But still, you have an infinity to expand awareness. And even if it took you 1,000,000 lifetimes to make an expansion, in the grand contextualized scheme of things, this is but a blink of an eye. Again, focusing on a place to go, or the time it will take to get there, will keep you from expanding. If anything, this will stagnate our progress. All in all, the only time there is, and the only place to be, is right now. This is the only possible moment you can be in, and the only possible moment to function in. How are you spending your now? Are you thinking, believing, acting, studying, reading texts, listening to a guru, praying, performing rituals, or having faith? If so, then you are far too busy filling up the now to recognize the emptiness of now. The formless emptiness of now makes a lot of spiritualists and devout followers of religion uncomfortable, and this is why they avoid it. They so desperately want it to be something familiar, something it's not, but rather something they want it to be. And this is what prevents them from knowing it. When a glass is filled up to the brim, nothing more can get inside. Only when a glass is empty does it have the potential to receive. When this is so, it becomes clear that there is nothing more to fill, and that the state of being empty with the potential to receive is the state to maintain.